than uh, the joint work that is conducted by that center, but also to bring answers to a topic that is of great concern of all of us. We are living in times of pandemics, a lot of misinformation, and it's difficult to find quality information and evidence based with good evidence. That's why we found that it was the key time for both our organizations to create a discussion forum as we're going to have today, where we are going to show you both the new VVSF of perinatology with a collaboration between CLAP and BDM, so that all the information in this area of women health and children health and reproductive health may be at reach of the decision makers and the healthcare professionals. And there is quality information. There is something that we say from club that we are the curators of information. We, as it happens with the museums, there are curators that look for the best work that will show the greatest impact, and we also work we work for science, and today we bring you something new. It's a window of health of the newborn, and um, in the times of the pandemic. So at this meeting we are going to have the specialists of BDMIC club presenting all this information. But now I am pleased to present Dr. Charles Barbosa, who will be who will talk about the topic of the meeting and the importance the of working together at the times of COVID in the region. So you have the floor, Doctor. We can't hear his voice. We can't hear his voice. We can't hear him. A suggestion for support. If we can't have the video now, if Diego is ready, maybe Diego can present the guests. I would give the floor to Diego. Please introduce yourself and present the work by our joint cooperation, today's guest, and then we'll go back to see the video of clap and the words by the PAHO Assistant Director. So, Diego, you have the floor. Thank you. Thank you, Susana. Just please confirm that you can hear me well. Yes, perfectly well, my dear. Well, first of all, I want to uh, endorse all the congratulations for the 50th anniversary of CLAP, a center in and Bireme and Panaftosa, the three specialized centers of PAHO, and in this case, representing Bireme as part of the Evidence and Intelligence Department for Coordination of Health, directed by Sebastian Garcia, who sends his special greetings, and also for all the participants at this event. It is for us a great pleasure to be with you at this seminar, addressing one of the topics that is today in the voice of all those of us who work together, that is infodemia, especially during the pandemic. For our presentations, we're going to have 4 lecturers. The first will be Thais Foster, who will present the window of knowledge of the perinatal BVS. Thais is a chemist, a pharmaceutical chemist specialized in public health by Sao Paulo University. She has a master's degree in information sciences by the London University and a master's degree of the of IT from Montevideo. She has worked in the Ministry of Health in Brazil and in different institutions in Uruguay, and at present she works in knowledge management in CLAP, and she is precisely responsible of these 2 products that she will present, that is the perinatal BVS and the window of knowledge. Both teams have been we have worked together with Vireme, a team that is devoted to democratizing knowledge and evidence of research for healthcare. And it's so when we support these products, both at the centers and in the countries, this is a very active work.
Organized with 3 managements, one coordinated with Veronica Abdalla, that was responsible for these 3 products, together with Renato Murasaki in IT and Silvia de Valentin in administration, and of course, together with us in communications, both scientific and institutional, and will be one of the lecturers. Susana, if you agree, let's pass to Thais, and then we will hear the different participants. The floor is yours, Thais. Thank you, Diego. I think that the future of the CLAP video that always starts with our celebrations is also ready. So I'm asking the coordinators. It's just a question. You can enter, Thais. Could we include the future CLAP video, or do we start with the video? Okay, let's see the video. Thank you, Diego, for everything, and your most wonderful team for all the work done to prepare this meeting, and all the work you have been doing for decades in the regional Pan-American centers. We are very pleased to direct these centers. So let's see the video on the future of CLAP.
Todas las madres y los niños van a tener una posibilidad mucho mayor de ejercer los derechos que tanto proponemos y que los embarazos sean deseados y planificados en virtud de lo que venimos trabajando, que va a haber una importante reducción en la mortalidad de causa prevenible.
El compromiso político de los gobiernos, con la participación de las sociedades, de las comunidades, y con la cooperación técnica, con todas las herramientas técnicas que tenemos para apoyar ese esfuerzo.
La vocación de CLAP es cuidar. Lo que nosotros hicimos durante 50 años y queremos hacer mucho más es cuidar a las mujeres y a los recién nacidos. ¿Y cómo se cuida bien? El cuidado va desde la promoción hasta la vigilancia y a la atención de la salud. Se cuida bien con buenas prácticas, con humanización de la atención y con el uso de la innovación tecnológica. Es a eso que nos dedicamos hoy y los días futuros lo pedirán, que seamos cada vez más innovativos, pero que siempre pongamos en primer lugar la atención humana a cada una de nuestras mujeres y recién nacidos.
Com pedrinhas de brilhante, para o meu amor passar. Se eu roubei seu coração, é porque tu roubaste o meu também. Se eu roubei teu coração, é porque te quero bem.
speak of perinatal BBS without acknowledging the work of the two Alicias we had working in CLAP. Alicia Repita, who was until 2007 a key person in the IT process of the CLAP library and the perinatal BBS, and Alicia Fernandez did the digitalization process and worked on the perinatal BBS. So we're very grateful to them both. In this third edition of the BBS, we adopted the new format as posed by Bireme to make it more agile, accessible, but always maintaining the principles of quality and accessibility in the different areas of CLAP. I must highlight the wonderful support of Marcos Mori and in Bireme, Juliana Sosa, Rosemary, and Veronica, who were there constantly supporting me in this field. Well, this doesn't seem to work. Okay, let me continue and then we'll return to this. In the first semester in 2020, vis-a-vis the need to improve access to specific information on maternal, neonatal, and sexual and reproductive health. In BVS, we included
However, given we needed a broader space and more in detail to respond to the user's needs because they were sort of messed up, as you see here. So, together with the support of Bireme, we created the window of knowledge for women and the newborn in COVID settings. So, and I want to thank the previous speakers that encouraged me to put here, to include some things here, some of the sexual and reproductive health issues. So, hopefully, now it will work. There. So, the knowledge window holds this is available in 3 languages, and here you will find the all the related issues, and this facilitates the access to specific areas. And in this sector of national recommendations, what we did was to look country by country what the publications were as recommendations for the care of women and children during this epidemic. In addition, we have videos, webinars, and other material that we consider important. And now, let me go back. Here you have it. Here you have the window in Portuguese and in English. Now, I couldn't connect earlier. And here we have the possibility of accessing the publications of these areas and all the publications here at Club. You can look for more specific topics, and here you have the complete access to the technical publications. As usual, it's available in English and in Portuguese. So, thank you. Thank you, Thais. Now, let me say that today this webinar has many different things. The first of which is that the welcome video of our director didn't work, but Thais, in her excellent presentation, showed that you have two spaces eh, in the website. You can go through the window, the perinatal BVS. Before we go to the next speaker, now Ernesto will take the floor, our dear Ernesto Spinaca. We're going to listen, but first we're going to listen to the video of our the director who's welcoming us and discusses the importance of infodemics today. So let's go ahead with Dr. Jabra's video. Welcome to this webinar celebrating the 50th anniversary of CLAP Women's and Reproductive Health of PAHO. And before I start, let me part of the webinars that have been conducted celebration of health-related knowledge. And our objective is to discuss the impact of the pandemic of COVID-19 in the creation and dissemination of scientific knowledge and to implement the new interface of the new perinatal uh, library, a virtual library, and the the speakers will speak of the impact of the infodemics on COVID and the suggestions for action, the general difficulties for creating scientific evidence, and its dissemination and translation into practice. This seminar is for professionals and students in the health area and scientific documentation students, especially those related to maternal and neonatal health, sexual and reproductive health, and other stakeholders interested in the topic. In the last 50 years, the creation and dissemination of scientific knowledge has undergone significant changes, especially in the area of health. The introduction of the new information technologies made it possible to have soaring increase of the publication of scientific papers in a range of formats. In 1998, BDM created the Virtual Library for Health, BVS, whose aim is to manage the information and health-related knowledge in Latin America and the Caribbean. BVS is a network that is under the coordination of BDM. Clapper joined BBS in the year 2000, creating the perinatal BVS devoted to the health of the newborn and the woman in and reproduction. So, in collaboration with CLAP and other countries, together with other reliable networks, it is accessible to the different stakeholders in the region and other continents. In the last months, because of the pandemics, COVID-19, the dissemination on health was expanded to um, levels that we had never seen, with some unexpected results. In the editorial of The Lancet in August, they highlight the concern for the lack of the loss of trust in the institutions and in the health authorities that pandemic can cause. Not only are we fighting against a pandemic, we are fighting against the pandemic, against the misinformation. Pedro's um, uh, and I quote him, the fake news and the misinformation has been played a key role in the area of the social media and has been triggered after the onset of the pandemic of COVID-19. And it is a matter of concern because it undermines trust in the information. So And the UN highlights that the effects highlights the deleterious effect of fake news among people. It may increase stigmas and threaten the delivery of healthcare services in the countries. And at the assembly, uh, at the UN Assembly, the member states approved 73 slash 21 and the response of COVID-19. And in that resolution, they recognize that infodemic is of key importance for COVID-19. And they call for the member countries to provide contents, reliable contents on COVID-19, and for them to adopt measures to make up for the fake and misinformation, and to make the most of the digital technologies in all their response. They also call for the international organizations to fight against false and erroneous information in the digital area, and for them to prevent the fake news to undermine health by providing good scientific knowledge to the population. To face this problem, WHO published a technical document that is a report, a global query on the management of the infodemic of COVID-19 conducted this month, and the principles for the response strategies based on four pillars. First of all, the information must be evidence and science based. Second, knowledge must be translated into messages to change behavior that may be implemented. Third, governments must reach the key communities to understand their concerns and their need for information. And finally, they must report strategic informations with the social media and the technological platform and the stakeholders. The document discusses 5 areas of action and proposes 50 actions for the management of the infodemic in health emergency. And so, understanding the infodemic and the misinformation in the fight against COVID-19 is must be the messages must be written clearly, explaining how the infodemic and misinformation collaborate to worsen the pandemic, making it difficult to find reliable sources with a negative impact on people's mood and with a negative impact on decision making and the lack of quality control of the publications and the misinformation of what is published in the web. WHO started formally conversation on the global effects on the management of infodemics at the first Congress on Infodemiology that gathered experts from different origins uh, and to exchange medical information and additional scientific information outside the circles of experts before it has been uh, exhaustively studied. For instance, uh, reprintings may be dangerous in this, especially during a pandemic where the healthcare professionals are constantly learning and contributing to the dynamic adjustments of the government policies. As in all the conditions, it is essential to be alert, to maintain surveillance, and to minimize the sequelae of the pandemic. And therefore, the governments, the agencies, and the health institutions, the academia, the public, and the professionals in the forefront must have reliable information. The initiatives um, that work in the generation management, critical analysis, and publications of evidence must be encouraged so that they may duly reach their audience, so as to uh, solve the problems of misinformation and protect the health of the populations of the potential risks of misinformation in our region, Bajo. has worked for over 50 years in gathering and analyzing and disseminating quality information consolidated since 1998 through the virtual health libraries. BDM and CLAP maintain the perinatal BVS and launch the window of knowledge of health and the newborn and
We
moms
hope that
during
this
COVID
seminar
19.
will help to better understand this phenomenon and present proposals to reduce the obnoxious effect on women's and newborns' health. Once again, welcome. Thank you for your words, Dr. Jabras. Right now, I will hand the floor to Diego Gonzalez, who will now is director of BIRIM, and he will invite our panelists. Diego, the floor is yours. Thank you, Susanna. Very wise words by Dr. Barbosa when he said we need to immunize ourselves to the infodemic. I think this is a very current issue. We're going to hear about scientific publications, open source publications, complying with the call made by UNESCO. We will have an IT engineer with a degree in economics with an advanced studies degree in Catalunya University and master's degrees in the Society of Information. And during long years, he was responsible for the Linux network in BDM and is a collaborator since 2013. And it works in a consultancy for IT projects in several centers in Uruguay. The floor is yours, Ernesto. Thank you, Diego. It's a pleasure to participate. Thank you for inviting me to participate in the celebration of these 50 years of club. It's very important for me because I'm a close neighbor. I live close. So it's nice to live close. I will speak of this subject because it's extremely important and very new and related with the UNESCO survey for open source. This has a long history in IT, 20 years. As was mentioned in 1998, the proposal for the virtual health library, VVS, and Cielo, Scientific Electronic Online, at a CRIX meeting in the Regional Information in Science, Health Sciences Congress in Costa Rica, and a declaration was signed at the time with a commitment to build this virtual library and the Cielo program. This is a pioneer event because prior to the Budapest Declaration, posting open access to publications, 2 projects had already been launched in this line. BVS and Cielo were the first of many initiatives of the sort in the region. BVS in the summit reached close to 150 national and regional specialized instances, basically with bibliography and reference bases. Cielo continued growing and now has over 1,800 journals and over 900,000 scientific papers and 1,300 books with open access or source. But Redalic in Mexico has 26 countries included in its network of open scientific journals with over 700,000 papers. The REDIB, the Ibero-American Network for Innovation and Scientific Knowledge, covers 37 countries, 3,500 journals, and over 1,280,000 documents. And then we have Open Door, the directory of open access repositories, gathers 5,390 open access repositories with millions of research documents. In other words, the information continued growing, and during these 20 years, open access has extended. We have other networks and specialized databases and technologies, and also complete systems that allow us to conduct research and obtain discovery indices after what we had in Google Scopus and Web of Science. We have had new systems that not only use tracing or follow-up technologies, but also natural language processing, semantic technologies, making the set of data available with open source. Of interest, we have had in particular the directory of open access journals that contains over 14,000 journals with 5 million papers, and each of these engines and sites have specialized indices and very elaborated consultation interfaces. To the same, indicators were created, such as the DOI, digital indicator, or SID, specialized plugins allowing global coverage of open access texts. At a certain point, people wondered how many registries does Google Scholar have. A recent estimate states that Google Scholar has 170 million indexed documents. And if we look at the main sites, Google Scholar covers close to 88% of those available. Microsoft, Academic Scholars, Dimensions, Web of Science, and this is the cross-reference index. That is, each contributes, but as a whole, Google Scholar can recover documents that are indexed to the complete text, because the main editorials in the world or publishers have admitted that Google enter these texts, and not only the text, but even small fragments called snippets. So it is possible to recover fragments or even pages and sections of at least 170 million scientific documents. And this is an incredible amount, impossible to imagine. Furthermore, the data search systems also have social networks, Creative Commons. The paradigm of open scientific publication has generated several social systems. The main trends are Mendeley, ResearchGate, Academia Edu, that also have internal policies generating questions or partnering researchers. But these three systems have over 100 million users, and as a whole, apart from repetitions, have 300 million documents to exchange, meaning that during the last 20 years, after starting in a humble way, Cielo began with 10 journals 22 years ago. At present, the amount of documents available to the scientific research world are hundreds of millions that researchers can search for and in which they may publish. also. So, countries reacted in a political way. For example, the USA, Canada, UK, the 27 UK, European Union countries have established mandates to publish with open access to everything funded by state funds. The Science Europe organization, founded in 2011, has financed a project called S-Plan, making open access a reality by 2020. In other words, this year we would have established and functioning by January 1st, 2021, an organization whereby all EU countries with research funded by Science Europe published in open access under the rules we will later detail. And a subset of the S-Plan includes the Plan U, that is a proposal to achieve universal access to medical and scientific research. That's a subset of the S-Plan, the U plan, but all governments and funders' mandates will urge to have everything research immediately published in preprint form in the different servers. Liliana will speak about this later. What are the conditions for open access? In 2 months, all papers funded by Science Europe shouldn't suffer any embargo following publication, shouldn't be published in hybrid journals. It must all be open access journals. Authors may retain their copyright to disseminate the paper in an unlimited manner. So authors may deposit this in different repositories, distribute it, and whatever they please. And processing costs, that is APCs, must have an upper limit of cost that is accessible. Not only governments, foundations such as the Wellcome Trust in the UK, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation support this as plan, meaning that this is a way that cannot be stopped. What is open access? We have 3 levels. Open access to texts, to the peer review process in an open way, and the data underlying research must also be open. At present, we have 2,500 data repositories working with forms, surveys, statistics, directories, databases, Excel sheets, photographs, charts, procedures, and open software. It's all available, not only clinical assays or trials. All the information used must be available in open data. And this is extremely important in the medical area because one of the issues of medical research regards the reproducibility of investigation. With this initiative, we're forcing to publish something that can be reproduced and verified. It's not doing the same experiment in the same lab. It can be done in any lab because they have all the research data. The audience is wider, and the other authors make the most of data used. So what has happened here? UNESCO had a few meetings last year in Paris with several institutions, and at the beginning of this year, in February, July, invited out of a total 130 countries, 2,900 participants, national, regional, and so on, to conduct a global consultation. They sent a questionnaire with over 100 questions in chapters. I had the honor of being selected in Uruguay, and we spent long hours to respond in several stages to this questionnaire.
And UNESCO, for each region, developed policies, definitions to identify the problems and the key challenges, the infrastructure, and the cooperation areas. This is all published. Now, after that procedure of consultations that lasted 4 months of webinars that went from August to September across the world in all the regions, UNESCO presented a white paper, Open Science in Latin America and the Caribbean, a strong tradition with a long journey ahead. This is UNESCO's proposal to achieve a greater scientific and regional cooperation. The activity of these webinars was based on open access, open data, citizenship and science. The research teams, the editorials, the journals, and university libraries that develop repositories are initiatives that are led by public universities with and scientific organizations in the region, funded with public funds with no commercial brokerage. So the idea is to take open science to everybody. So, less than a month ago, on October 27th, UNESCO, together with WHO, the European Center for Nuclear Research, and the UN Office for the High Commissioner for Human Rights, presented with more than 130 countries a webinar where they presented the white paper proposal. All the entire year's work was uh, put into that document um, for open science, and its main um, uh, its main seeing that the main idea was to respond to the immediate challenges of COVID-19 and to accelerate progress of the implementation of the 2030 agenda. And so everybody should do it for scientific knowledge. This white paper will be presented in the within the next the first 6 months next year, with the presence of all the countries in UNESCO. So, support will be given to the broad access of science to improve people's well being. That text should be approved in the next 6 months, and after its approval, as is always the case in UNESCO, it will be re, uh, forwarded to FAO, UNICEF, ILO, just all the UN agencies, so that the paradigm of open access of research will be supported um, globally. The open access to scientific publications is here to stay. This is the new paradigm where all the UN, all the agencies, including WHO and all its departments, will have to, upon release of the documents, will need to give open access. So we are going to contribute with our effort to democratization of science. However, this topic will now be addressed by Dr. Lilian, who will speak of the preprint servers as an additional step forward for open access. Thank you, Ernesto. It was really a very valuable presentation on this movement of open science that we absolutely support at VDMA. It's a wonderful thing that you contribute with VDMA as Lilacs. Lilacs is a great, also celebrated its 35th anniversary, and they are working together with that open science access, open access to science, and is fully aligned with all these principles. It's also good that you gave a sort of introduction to our next speaker who will discuss something related to this movement, Lilian Callot. Lilian will talk about scientific information on COVID 19 and the reliability of the preprints. Lilian is a chemist graduated at the Institute of Biochemistry in Sao Paulo. She was a postgraduate a scholar of the Humboldt University in Germany, and she worked in USP. She has worked in the private sector as a chemist, and today she is the scientific and institutional coordinator in BDM. Her area of interest encompasses all the scientific learning. She gives in-person and online courses in several languages in Latin America and the Caribbean for healthcare professionals, scientific editors, authors, and postgraduate students. You have the floor, Lillian. Thank you, Dr. Diego. Good afternoon, everybody. I wanted to thank the organizers of this event, Dr. Suzanne Ceruya, for inviting me to this very important event, and to congratulate everybody at CLAP for the 50th anniversary. It's an honor to be present in this celebration. Thank you. So I'm going to share my screen and to tell you a bit about the preprints. Can you all see my slide? Yes, Lillian. Well, so let me tell you about scientific information on COVID-19 and the reliability of preprints. This pandemic that we are facing this year certainly is not the first that mankind has had to address. We have so far 1.35 million deaths. This is a very serious thing, but thanks to our scientists and our researchers and the evolution of science for centuries, we managed to synthesize many initiatives. They are developing vaccines, therapies, and drugs to be able to um, address this pandemic quickly. So we and in a way that is absolutely new. We didn't see this in previous pandemics. This is the first time that we see the creation of vaccines in just a few months, and the results so far have been very positive. So let's look for the best. We expect the best. So, as my colleague Thais said, the term infodemiology was created by Eisenbach as the methodology of interdisciplinary research that studies the determinants and the distribution of information and misinformation in health. So, in 2003, during the epidemic of SARS-CoV-1, the severe acute respiratory syndrome epidemic that went from December 2002 2002 to May 2003, and it was sort of limited in China, in a province, and they had about 700 deaths caused by the SARS-CoV-1, coronavirus 1. And in 2003, there had been an epidemic of information that had increased and prolonged the social, economic, and public health damage caused by the disease. And this new epidemic was called by Eisenbach an infodemic. So, and Thais explained this term very well. However, infodemic is not exclusively limited to public health. So, the director of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, gave a talk in he says, we are not fighting an epidemic, we are fighting an infodemic. And the WHO and all the world started using the word infodemic to when referring to an excess of information, reliable or not, associated to a specific event that may be multiplied exponentially in a short time, such as the case of COVID-19 pandemic. In this situation, then, there are rumors and misinformation that appear together with the information that appears with a dubious intention that is manipulated in the information era. This phenomenon is amplified by the social networks and it propagates similarly to the virus. So, scientific information. These are articles that are published in scientific journals that report the results of scientific research and observation of natural phenomena. It's the contrary of the information that is often transmitted as infodemic. In those cases, it is not scientific information, but of facts that people often believe and that they transmit as if it were correct information, but it isn't. So, scientific information that comes from the articles, from the result of scientific papers published in the proper channels of scientific journals, books, conferences, and meetings to be in order to be published, they have to undergo the so-called peer review. So and the definition of peer review consists of um, having the scientific work be scrutinized by the peers, other experts that are have the same level of the colleagues that wrote the article, that conducted the research. These experts are designed by the journal editor. These reviewers are very often anonymous and they usually make comments or suggest reviews to the work, thus contributing to the quality of the paper that will be published. What do we expect from sciences in relation with the research on COVID-19? What we expect is integrity of research, transparency, an adequate methodology, objective analysis of results, result-based conclusions, no biases or conflicts of interest, and we don't want a plagium or for fake data. Now, the understanding of science by the society and what has to do with the peer review process, we we expect science to be reliable, reproducible, relevant, and inedit. These qualities should be designed by the peer review. But what is under the scope of the peer review? The public in general interprets the peer review as a seal of approval a mechanism that has the power of protecting society over an information chaos. But what is really at reach of a peer review? Transparency. N- Not always. Adequate methodology, yes, it's there. A factual analysis of results, yes. The result-based conclusions, yes, it's there. The lack of biases and conflicts of interest, it's not very often there. The absence of a plagium of false data, not always, although there are mechanisms of control for that.
Reproducibility, quoted by Spinnock. No, it's only possible to state that a study is reproducible when it can be done again in another lab. Relevance, not immediately, and originality, not always. So we observe that peer review, in spite of doing things for a paper, makes it clear, it corrects some mistakes and failures. It cannot state that it is 100% perfect as we expect in a scientific paper. Journals that on average take between 60 to 140 days, with a median of 93 days between the time the paper is sent to publication, has shortened to 7 days when it's papers on COVID-19. So the magnitude and impact of the pandemic really deserve the effort made to accelerate publication of research outcomes, particularly when they can immediately contribute towards the efforts to reduce the transmission, morbidity, and mortality. However, the speed of publication of research on COVID-19 causes concern in relation to the quality of the evidence base and the risk of disseminating incorrect information on the disease with obnoxious results for this population. We have preprints. What are they? Preprints are complete scientific articles deposited by authors in an open access platform or server. The preprints usually are the same or a previous version of a typescript sent to a journal for peer review and possible publication. Usually, an author sends a paper to be deposited in a preprint platform. The preprint platform editor conducts a basic screening to see if it's scientific material and if it isn't plagiarism or something that has been copied and published before elsewhere. After this initial screening, the articles are generally published in 24 to 48 hours. The preprint repositories are multidisciplinary, as Pierre FQ, and 1000 have specialized editors in different areas accepted for publication. So you need these specialized editors in the different topics included for publication. In most cases, one same article published as a preprint will later be also sent to a journal, and they are reviewed by peers in this process. So we have two vehicles: preprints that are fast but not peer reviewed, and scientific journal publications that are slower but peer reviewed, that may and currently function in parallel as channels to communicate scientific research. A historical review. The first preprint repository was Archive in 1992 at the Cornell University Library and published preprints on physics, astronomy, mathematics, computer sciences that authors in this area, when the internet appeared, included in this repository to be consulted, and people began to make comments on these papers in the repository. The authors then make the most of this informal peer review conducted by these comments to improve their papers. They may include additional experiments and make new estimates and reach new conclusions. And when they feel this paper is more mature and complete, send it for publication in a journal. Most archive papers are published in various physics, mathematics, and astronomy journals. They have 1.6 million preprints at present. Then we have a list of other servers such as Figshare, bioRxiv, that arose in 2013. The Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory Initiative, it was the first biology and life sciences preprint repository. It currently has 200,000 preprints, and we have the PeerJ preprints. There's a PeerJ journal also. The Cold Spring Harbor launched the medRxiv in 2019, and then we have several thematic repositories: chemistry and engineering, psychology, sociology in 2020, the Cielo preprints that is multidisciplinary, and at present there is a large amount of thematic institutional repositories in different areas. Here we have this page of the medRxiv and bioRxiv collection preprints on COVID-19 gathered in one same website. This COVID-19 collection belonging to medRxiv and bioRxiv is indexed in the health virtual library, such as the Cielo and the Fiocruz ARCA repository preprints. So in the health virtual library, we have these collections of preprints with a disclaimer that will be mentioned later. Here, for example, you have this paper on COVID-19 in medRxiv. Paper is complete with abstract material methods, introduction, results, conclusion, figures. And here you have a sort of peer review that is not with invitation. No reviewers are invited. If the reader believes they can contribute something, they will be able to make a comment that will be moderated, and it's published, and we have a sort of discussion, a live discussion. So people make comments, the authors answer, and in this way we have this discussion that may be characterized as a post-publication peer review. Following the publication of the article, the administrators of the bioRxiv repository state that 38% of preprints receive at least one comment. This is a high figure indicating that the post-publication de facto peer review does work, and well. What are the advantages of preprints? First, it's possible to publish this as a preprint, but then send it to a journal to have a formal publication of the paper. Preprints are open access, they are fast, and are acknowledge the author of the idea and discovery. They are indexed by the open science frameworks and may be quoted and accumulate quotations or citations. The National Institute for Health and the Wellcome Trust acknowledge preprints as the outcome of projects funded by these institutions. So as a result of the projects funded, you may present a paper, but also a preprint that are considered positive outcomes of a research project. They operate with the open peer review, as we saw, and it is possible to publish articles on subjects such as climate change, genetic manipulation, genetically modified organisms that are often hard to publish in traditional journals there. So preprints publish this sort of results. Here we have the website of the Virtual Health Library, where we see the medRxiv collection and preprints regarding COVID, bioarchived cellular preprints, and below those of Fiocruz in our Virtual Health Library, BVS. The reasons that lead an author to publish a preprint in response to COVID go from altruism, making the discoveries available to all, to egoism, because preprints guarantee the authors of the discovery fast. In 24 hours, you have a name and a date of publication, guaranteeing the prevalence of authorship. And all this is amplified due to the unique circumstances of the COVID pandemic. The bioarchive and medRxiv servers and all the preprint editors include a disclaimer to account for the fact that the results communicated shouldn't be considered as conclusive until they are peer-reviewed and shouldn't be disseminated in the media as established information. In spite of this warning, preprints on COVID have received unprecedented coverage in online media platforms. So the newspapers say we have a publication. She doesn't know how to say it in Spanish, in brackets, that has not been peer reviewed. And they tell the results. Having the media extensively importing news after COVID preprints is a significant cultural change because it opens a new way of communicating scientific results that were limited to scientific journals that were not always open access, and preprints are always open access. So this is another opportunity to disseminate research results so the population has scientific results available to read and discuss instead of those disseminated by fake news, as in the infodemic. However, many people can say, well, if it isn't peer-reviewed, can it be really reliable? It's true, maybe not. But here we see two examples of articles published, one in The Lancet and the other in the New England Journal of Medicine, both on treatment of COVID with hydroxychloroquine, and both were removed a week or 10 days later. And what both papers shared was that they used the database of a company called Surgisphere. This company works with
It's a company that works with patient data in the United States. When this company was asked why the results were not well, they couldn't explain why they had such an amount of data of COVID patients in such a short time. As a result, the two articles in the Lancet and New England Journal of Medicine were recalled because they affirmed that hydroxychloroquine produced serious cardiac effects on patients. What is known is that despite the fact that hydroxychloroquine does not have proven effectiveness for the disease, it is not true that it causes those heart problems in the patients, which was stated by these two papers in renowned journals. And here there's another article, a previous article of the Lancet. You may all remember it. It is Wakefield who associated the MMR vaccine, but it took about 12 years for him to withdraw that. So this is an example of a poor paper in a good journal, and they had to uh, uh, remove it. So once the authors have submitted the papers, they cannot be withdrawn for um, um, immaterial reasons, but they can be corrected. The advisory committee may decide to edit um, or to take back um, the paper because it has serious errors, or because the preprint is infringing the copyrights. In this case, the meta-analysis maintains it, and here you have, for instance, a preprint in bioRxiv that says this paper has been withdrawn by its authors for some reason that is serious enough. So it is possible to retract a paper that has problems. So it's possible to take back the reprint. So I wanted to speak about this project, this draft project that Spinak mentioned of UNESCO. It's a recommendation on open science that was just published on November the 10th, that will be recommended to be adopted in the next UNESCO General Assembly next year. But there's a paragraph that says to promote open science from the start of the research process and expand the principles of opening to all the steps of the scientific process, including through the promotion of preprints to speed the dissemination and to promote and to drive the rapid growth of scientific knowledge. So I endorse what Ernesto Spinelli is saying, that all this work by UNESCO, that in the end it recommends um, all the research process for the benefit of all mankind. So thank you. And once again, my congratulations to CLAP, and I wish you 50 more years. Thank you, Lillian. This was a wonderful presentation, as we always hear from you. So it's worth highlighting in this presentation something that you mentioned, several collection of these preprints that today are available in the Health Virtual Library. So when we conduct searches at the library, we can retrieve the preprints published on a topic, and that now this has grown a lot during the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you, Lillian. And now we invite the last speaker related to the quality of the publication, the systematic um, review that it will be presented by Rodolfo Gomez Ponce de Leon, who's a gynecologist of Tucumán, Argentina. He has a master's degree in public science, focusing um, from North Carolina in the United States, and he focused on in the Mother and Child Department of the School of Public Sciences, and he is um, he's an advisor to CLAP that is celebrating its 50th anniversary. So you have the floor, Rodolfo. Thank you, Diego, for the presentation. I'm going to be very brief. My role today will be share with you the uh, real life issues. As a scientist, I'm going to try to share what happened to us with a very pragmatic case when we started systematic review and a meta-analysis on the viral shedding and body fluids in of COVID. And I'm going to share some preliminary work. What was our aim with this systematic review? Basically, we wanted to know whether COVID-19 is transmitted sexually. They are telling him that his voice is interrupted. Now it's better. As I was telling you, the initial question was whether COVID-19 can be transmitted sexually. Can a person get the disease after the acute phase because of sexual intercourse? Can it be transmitted by all the different intercourses? Penis, vagina, penis in the mouth, penis in the anus. That is, what kind of sexual intercourse are we talking about? So we conducted a search with these terms in all the languages. I'm going to go quickly because we don't have much time left. And this um, this is a global literature of a coronavirus, and the search was done in all these languages: Chinese, French, Portuguese, etc. And and then where the preprint articles are available. And here there's an element that is crucial to follow the thoughts of our colleague. If we are looking for, if the article is a preprint, WHO states that it should not be used to, um, should not be used to guide therapy. And we understand clearly why. And they shouldn't be um, uh, published if they are not certified. What inclusion and exclusion criteria did we cut? The inclusion criteria, they needed to be studies that informed of the viral burden or the detection of SARS-CoV-2 in saliva, semen, etc. They needed to be primary case reports, and they in the primary care, secondary, or tertiary care. We excluded studies in animals, in vitro, commons, or so the idea was to see whether it could be transmitted sexually. So This is from where we extracted the data. This two independent reviewers conducted the analysis of the abstract, and if there was disagreement between them, a third uh, um, uh, researcher, a third reviewer would define the final solution. So we registered the systematic review in the um, in the International Perspective Register of Systematic Review by and with citations of Lian Gonsalves and a group of researchers of the Institute of Fertility of Cuba, that is a center that collaborates with a collaborating center of WHO. We defined the criteria for research and analysis, and this is is a live systematic review with a meta-analysis. Thanks to the incredible difference between the one paper and the other and the periods when they were published. This is a new disease, a new virus. They didn't know much about it, and there is a lot of interest by the public and by the journals to receive publications. The quality of the first publications from China were very uneven. Some of them were very good, others were very flawed, and of course, we could not consider the preprints alone without the quality criteria, especially of the NIH in the United States, to classify the case reports. Since here, not only do we have to be, not only did it have to be published. So this is so there was a storm of information, and we wanted to see in the first search in May there were already 290 papers. After finishing the filtration, we only identified 65 to be analyzed full text. The next week there were 100 more, and by the next week an additional 117. So there was a huge increase in the number of publications, and at the end you see that there is no increase in this last part of big figures of studies. These were because there were preprints that were removed from circulation and had not been accepted by the journals. So it was this. It's very difficult sometimes to synthesize uh, when they are withdrawn. Finally, we could identify 1,300 articles. 1,187 were excluded, and of the 132 full texts that met all the characteristics, 97 were included in the quantitative synthesis. These 35 that were not included, these are the reasons why they were not included. Most of them because they didn't have the sample that we were looking for to see whether it was sexually transmitted. So here you have a lot of information, but with very uneven quality, and it is very difficult to draw conclusions in some cases. Let me give you a scoop. Apparently, the persistence, the maximum persistence would be in the rectal area where we have a 40 days persistence, then in saliva with a persistence of around 22-23%, and then much less persistence both in the vagina and in the semen. Then, and with this I'll finish, we analyze saliva and to see to what extent it transmitted. Here you see that 76.8% of the PCR diagnosed patients had presence of the virus also in the saliva, and 14 days later, that is the approximate time that it is considered that the person gets cured, um, there were several that still had the persistence of the virus in saliva. And if the second fluid that is important is the rectal mucosa or the feces, the fluid in the feces. Look at the difference between children and adults. That's why we separate them, because when we're speaking of children, we can't speak of sexual intercourse, but we see it in adults. 85% of the children had presence of a virus.
And at 14 days, already half, 53%, maintained the presence. Not in adults, there half had presence and 43% persistence at 14 days. Both in the vaginal and mucosa and in semen, there is a less presence and persistence after 14 days that are quite low. And here we have a very diverse quality of scientific production, so it's very hard to summarize. What we wanted to know was if the virus could be sexually transmitted, and it was very hard in relation to what I mentioned about the uneven quality of preprints and the large amount of information we had to analyze, but we're going to reach this data, and this will be soon published in order to make practical recommendations to use condom in sexual relationship and sexual intercourse, and to estimate the probability of sexual transmission. Well, thank you so much, Rodolfo. Good progress to speak about the importance of the quality of research in order to make this sort of systematic revisions and fight against the infodemic. I really liked how you began your presentation, because you gave us one of the main manners to struggle against the infodemic, and that is to have with good information, particularly in important databases such as those you mentioned, organized by WHO. And I want to add that the search interface in this database is of the Global Medical Index developed by BIREME that receives constant contributions from BIREME. But it isn't the only database, and that's important. When closing this issue about the infodemic, we must work increasingly on quality information products. And I wish to mention and add to what you said, Rodolfo, some others. For example, the evidence database developed by PAHO in the Evidence and Intelligence for Action Department. We have all the information products produced by BIREME, such as those of victims of knowledge, a COVID case, a showcase, evidence maps, all the work conducted to gather all databases such as the one for health technologies and other databases we're working on currently. And Thais also mentioned other contributions by ENH. That was the information sheet on the infodemic. And I would like to add that there are other studies being conducted at the department. For example, working in the group created by WHO in relation to the infodemic. And participation in this mega event we have had with 3,500 people organized by WHO, and where we had people from our department participating. And we have also begun to launch a regional network on the infodemic and a proof of concept to implement a center in relation to this subject. And I will end, before handing the floor to Susanna, disseminating information about our PAHO journal that launched a special issue on the infodemic, where the call is open up to the November 30th, and we hope to receive many papers in relation to this subject, particularly today that we're discussing everything related with plan. This is it. Susan, the floor is yours. And once again, both Vidimian and the ENH department compliment CLAP in the celebration of the 50th anniversary. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, Diego. You're always very generous in relation to this wonderful team we have had speaking to us today. We had 4 excellent presentations by Rodolfo, Ernesto, Lilian, and Thais. And I think we have discussed a topic of concern to all, and that is how to obtain the best information. It is a cause of concern for us who wish to know more of vaccines and medication, and all health professionals, and particularly the public. This seminar will be in the PAHO website, and you will all be able to consult it. I'm going to ask the different participants now to turn on the cameras so we can thank them. And for all those behind the screen, translators who are women, and all the people providing the connection, and Thais and Anna who have coordinated this work together with you, Diego. We're very pleased to celebrate the 50 years of CLAP. That is a reference throughout the region as far as information goes. We really wanted to host this seminar and this webinar because we are always seeking quality information. So we needed to discuss how to proceed to make the information we put forward is the best produced. Thank you all. Let's end this webinar with a special thing. Many of us are dressed in orange because today is a World Day for the elimination of violence against women, a very important matter that unfortunately has been worsened by the pandemic. We're going to continue fighting to make women free of violence so that they have sexual and reproductive rights. Thank you all. See you on the 9th December with an information seminar of the perinatal information system. Thank you all. See you.